Again, it was mentioned, my name is Federico Rios, and I am, like I imagine most of you, not a native Charlottean. Can I get a show of hands for who is not a native Charlottean in the room? I love doing that. Some of you may have been in places where I've done that before. I think it's incredibly important to ask that question in these spaces because invariably we're talking about Charlotte, and all of us now call this home, but it wasn't always our home. And so it's good to put that in the room. So I arrived in the city 11 years ago and find myself struggling mightily with the nuances of the Southern hospitality / passive aggressive culture dynamic. You all know what I mean. I think I can take credit for the phrase, bless your heart, social politics. As I became more enmeshed in the social fabric here, I learned how to push past the niceties a willfully siloed community must barter with in order to speak truth. I grew more adept at saying what needed to be said. Now, for the Southerners in the room, I mean you no harm. In fact, I'm grateful to be a Charlottean by choice, and I'm proud to call both of my sons natives of this beautiful city. But Charlotte, as an adopted son, we have some things we must confront, some truths we must lay bare. I'll attempt to highlight these truths by using quotes as primer. So Brian Stevenson would have us to know that the opposite of poverty is not wealth. The opposite of poverty is justice. In a town built on finance, that's a hard notion to bear. Many of our neighbors live to build wealth, and that's understandable. In fact, the case can be made as to why wealth building is necessary. From firsthand experience, I'm here to tell those of you that don't know, poverty sucks. It changes your brain chemistry, it can overpower your moral imperative, it destroys you in ways that data can never adequately sum up. Poverty is never satisfied. It is relentless in its destruction. It's this fact that actually illuminates the quote. You see, wealth is also insatiable. Greed multiplies. It robs you of your humanity and makes false gods out of mere men. So how is it that these two extremes are not opposites, you may ask? Well, the difference comes in the giving, not the taking. Wealth and justice both give. Justice offers hope, peace, and opportunity. Justice, by definition, levels the playing field. It creates harmony. The second quote I'll reference is from Frederick Douglass, a former slave, freedom fighter, and all-around badass. I wrote that before I knew you were going to be here, man. I'm sorry. It's a quote that I often said, and I've had the distinct honor of presenting at 8th grade graduation ceremonies, which is really, really fun in my previous role. And so Mr. Douglass would have us to know that it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Several years ago, I first learned of what was then Legal Services of the Southern Piedmont at a convening of an ad hoc group of immigrants' children's advocates called CAM. At the time, word was that Charlotte was considering opening a detention center here in town. And community members rallied around this and began meeting at a church in Uptown to discuss ways to support the frailest of the frail, individuals that were highly traumatized from their country of origin, that had gone through the immigration process here locally, that encountered so many challenges, and this community stepped up. In my role at the time as a program director for communities and schools, I was given charge over the establishment of a program, you heard this earlier, to serve the swelling numbers of unaccompanied immigrant children from Central America arriving in Charlotte. I bonded with the individuals that worked for LSSP, and through our staff members directed what I can only imagine were hundreds of young people and their families to its offices. The trouble was that for many of these children, the damage had already been done. The die had set. The ease of building had given way. But I saw firsthand how the team at what is now the Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy put pieces back together and rebuilt robbed and ruined lives. They gave hope where there was none. I watched as selfless advocates went into schools and communities to offer Know Your Rights presentation during moments of heightened enforcement and the debilitating fear that remained long after. I witnessed children and their families be given a second chance. Now, for years when I read this quote by Mr. Douglas, I used this as a justification for my work's focus on youth. The quote said it's easier to build kids. Why go the hard way, I thought. If you extend this logic out, you'll see one of the false narratives that's often replayed in our community, and that is this: children are worth saving. Adults are the cause of their own misfortune. This false diagnosis fails to account for the systemic failures and breakdowns that burden our community's resource and social capital starved poor. The Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy challenges these notions daily. Its programs serving not only immigrants but also veterans, the working poor, and the disenfranchised and forgotten expose the system and again level the playing field and make justice accessible to all. The work of the Opportunity Task Force led this community to recommendations that challenged our very nature as a city. As a member of the Leading on Opportunity Council, the organization that is charged with seeing through those recommendations, I couldn't imagine being at a better place than here this morning. Legal Aid and the Charlotte Center for Legal Advocacy are committed to making sure that a community can access safety, security, and stability. Words that echo the report recommendation and ideals that steel our resolve. These ideals go beyond concepts. They are indicative of our humanity. They are what drives us and changes the injustices our system has readily accepted. I wasn't asked to do an altar call, right? So Ken did not say to me, hey, plug away at these people and get them to invest their time and their treasure. But I ask for your support of these organizations. You may already volunteer. You may already give financially. But I would echo the statements that were said by the presenter earlier, that more than ever, we need you to give beyond what you've already done. We need you to give even more of your time and your treasure. Because it's organizations like these that will change the dynamics that we have accepted in this community. So I ask for your support beyond what you've already given and committed. Go beyond just Band-Aid giving. Go beyond what feels comfortable. Give where it hurts. In perilous times when justice seems far off, sacrifices must be made. Allow your momentary discomfort to provide for many the peace and security only true justice can offer. Thank you.